Matt Hancock, we were just discussing the High Court case that you have lost. You have broken the law. Can I ask you about that? The High Court has ruled that you acted unlawfully by not publishing contracts quickly enough that your department struck during the coronavirus pandemic. And these are contracts that were worth millions and millions of pounds, sometimes hundreds of millions of pounds. Would you like to take this opportunity to apologise to people for that?
Well, thanks, Andrew. And I could hear the discussion that you've just had. And as was set out, it's really clear what this court case is and isn't about. The court case did not find that there was a problem with any of the contracts. What it found is that whilst, of course, contracts like this need to be published, and we've published all of the details that are required, you're supposed to do that within 30 days. And on average, in the height of the pandemic, we did that within 47 days. So we were just over a fortnight late on average with this publication. And the reason for that is because my team were working 7 days a week, often 18 hours a day, to get hold of the equipment that was saving lives.
I understand that, but as you know, I'm sorry, Andrew, Matt Hancock, as you know, some of those contracts were nonetheless highly controversial. And the judge himself, Lord Justice Chamberlain, says that you spent, and I quote, vast quantities of public money on pandemic-related procurements. The public were entitled to see who this money was going to, what it was being spent on, and how the relevant contracts were awarded. And he's absolutely right, isn't he?
He's 100% right. And that is absolutely possible. The technical issue is that we were just over a fortnight late on average with the publication of these things. And the reason for that is a reason that I back my team up 100% on.
OK, so
that they were totally focused on saving lives. If you just remember back, Andrew, I
know the situation was stressful.
The situation was that we were very, very tight on PPE. And thankfully, thanks to the incredible work of my team, we didn't have a national shortage of PPE.
All right.
And that's because they spent all of their time buying life-saving equipment, some of these paperwork was a little bit late.
Listen, we both know that some of these contracts were controversial at the time and subsequently. My question is, if you think that the judge was right, if you think this is really just a technical issue, why did you spend £200,000 of public money fighting the case in the first place? Wasting that money.
I don't think that there's been any of that. We do have
the money's been wasted.
Well, if you ask why people have raised a case like this on this matter, perfectly reasonable question to ask. But of course, the government has to defend its position, because what we did was we did what was right, which was to buy life-saving equipment as fast as we possibly could. And then, of course, to make required publications.
I do remember that. But the question, I'm sorry. The question is, was it the right PPE? Were these the right companies? Did they provide value for money? And was their equipment good enough? And there've been questions about all of that. The National Audit Office, whose report preceded all of this, have said that there was a special, as it were, fast-track lane for people who had contacts with politics and government, and that such organisations were 10 times likelier to get the contract. And that has led many people to think there is something wrong here, something fundamentally wrong going on in the way these contracts were awarded.
No, as you say, and as you said in your response to your earlier interviewer, who was making all sorts of false allegations, the National Audit Office found that all of these contracts were awarded in an appropriate way. Of course, we fast-tracked the leads that we thought were most likely to be able to get hold of the stuff fastest. And they did that, as you just read out, the 10 times faster.
Let me read you out something else from the National Audit Office report, because this is quoting directly from them. And they said that your actions, and I quote, diminished public transparency and the lack of adequate documentation means we cannot give assurance that the government has adequately mitigated the increased risks arising from emergency procurement or applied appropriate commercial practices in all cases. That's the National Audit Office basically saying you did not give them the information that allowed them to take the judgments you've been talking about.
Andrew, as the National Audit Office said in the quote you just read out, this was an emergency situation. my team worked so hard and they were successful in ensuring that there was never a national shortage of PPE. I back them every step of the way, and any Secretary of State would, and the whole nation should be, and I think actually in very large part is incredibly grateful for the work they've done, because we've saved lives. Now, of course, there's the loose ends that need tying up, but what is most important in the middle of a pandemic is you do everything you can to save lives. Like, for instance, the subject that we're talking about today, which is the absolutely superb vaccine rollout and the ability now to be able to set more advanced targets, again, because my team have worked so hard and done so well, no matter what the naysayers say.
So you have nothing to apologise for at all, despite losing a case and being legally in breach of the law?
Look, people can make up their own view about whether I should have told my team to stop buying PPE and spend the time bringing forward those transparency returns by just over a fortnight, or whether I was right to buy the PPE and get it to the front line. You tell me that that's wrong. You can't. And the reason you can't is because it was the right thing to do.
Wait.
And all legal cases about timings of transparency returns are completely second order compared to saving lives. And there is no health secretary in history who would have taken the view that they needed to take people off the project of buying PPE in order to ensure that 9 months later, the health secretary didn't have a slightly bumpy interview on the Marr programme. It's not what it's about, Andrew. It's about doing the right thing.